Welcome. This video interview is part of the USMC VTA History Project. We're recording today on September 11, 2025 at the VTA Reunion in San Diego, California. The goal of these interviews is to capture the stories and experiences of our association members from their Vietnam experiences. My name is Clayton Price. To begin, please state your full name, rank, and time in country.
My name is Thomas Reish. My time in country was 1967 through 1969. That was my first 13-month tour, and I extended for another 6 months. So that covers the whole time, and I left the Marine Corps as a Sergeant E5. So it was a long road, it seemed, starting from the time you decide you're going to become a Marine. It's an interesting battle sometimes with yourself, family, and friends. I had a buddy. We were going to go in the Marine Corps together as companions, go through the buddy program. And I stiffed him. I backed out at the last minute. And so he went in 6 months ahead of me. I'm from a small town in upstate New York on the Finger Lakes. Canandaigua is one of the Finger Lakes, and that's where I grew up. Was dating the daughter of a woman who worked at the Selective Service office. And after I had stiffed my friend, I could have gone in on the buddy program and been with someone. She called me, did this to me one night when I was picking up her daughter and said, "Your number is up." Oh, man. So instead of being drafted for 2, I enlisted in the Marine Corps for 3 and went in without my friend, who was now a PFC doing what his business was. So I went to boot camp by myself. And as I was telling some people just a little bit ago, it was interesting at boot camp. Got an education because everyone knows Marine Corps boot camp. You are really awakened by the way they treat you on your first night when you can sleep. You think you're out to the world, and then at an ungodly morning hour, they start throwing trash cans and banging them and get up and all that. Well, one of the fellas that I went to boot camp with, after 3 nights, had had enough. And he started raising Cain. And everybody thought, well, he was nuts. Well, this guy had a black belt, and he took out our 3 drill instructors and 3 MPs before they had enough MPs to get him down. And we all learned something that night, that it didn't make any difference what you thought they were going to make you a Marine. So it went rather smoothly the rest of the time in boot camp and the other things, but in conversations here with people that are Marines from different eras, I went in 67. I went in June, and I had basic training, infantry training, had a 10-day leave, had tank school, had staging battalion, and I was in Vietnam before Christmas of 67. So how well were we trained? Don't know, but I'm here today.
Where was boot camp?
Boot camp was Parris Island. I'm sorry. And of course, when you're from the East Coast, the guys that went through MCRD, which is where we've been for our reunion here, Hollywood Marines, these guys, they don't know what being Marines are. Always something between us. So I ended up in Vietnam and went to Bravo Company, 3rd Tank Battalion. But I was kind of held back a little bit only because I had applied for a hardship discharge. My father died 1 week after my 18th birthday, and I was looking for a sole surviving son exemption, which I didn't get. So I was still back at the Quang Tree area when Tet happened. I had changed guard duty one night with another Marine who wanted a night off for whatever personal reason he had. So the night of Tet, I was supposed to be on guard, but I had changed and this Marine was on guard. And when all hell broke loose from the trench that I was in, because of all the stuff that was happening, I looked out and the guard post, the sandbag bunker, I looked and all I saw was smoke, dirt, dust, and I'm thinking, oh shit, did something happen to him out there and I'm supposed to be on guard duty? Fortunately, it didn't hit the bunker. It hit right near it, but it still created such a terrible view of what happened that there's an indoctrination to how close you come to dying. 18, 19, 20 years old. Scary thoughts. So I spent a little bit more time in Quang Tree, and when the denial for my sole surviving son came through, I knew I was going to be shipped out. So at that point in time, headquarters said, you're going to Bravo Company, 3rd Tank Battalion. And up to Camp Carroll I went. I can't remember who was in charge up there at the time. And you did the things that we're supposed to do, police the area and all that. And even Camp Carroll, at that time, you were saluting officers, and although it was a combat zone, it was morning formations, policing the area, doing those things. But Camp Carroll was also an artillery base. And I want to tell you, the first time I heard a 175 artillery go off from our spot, scared. I fell into a trench because I thought we were getting hit from the enemy. But survived that and was sent out to the rock pile. Lieutenant Lulai was my platoon commander, and when I met him, I committed the unpardonable sin. I had to ask him twice for hearing. My hearing is terrible. And he said, Lieutenant Lulai, and whoop, I whipped to attention and gave him salute. Don't salute out here. So these are things you just don't pick up until you're in that situation. And part of the reason I'm here, I have fought for years to not show up here because I have nothing to say. But Lieutenant Lulai and Captain Davis, the company commander, but I learned just recently he was the XO at the time. He was Lieutenant Davis, are helping me get through this. Because I don't remember a lot of things that went on, and I'm trying to use them to help me remember some things. So we talk a lot when we have these reunions, and I'm thankful that they are around and we have good times and share some stories, swap lies, of course, and we catch up from our civilian days. But the basic reason I decided to do this was a lot of these stories I don't remember. And in fact, the Sponson Box, which is our quarterly magazine, comes out, and I saw something in an article in one of them, and I thought I knew which one it was, but apparently I didn't. And in part of the story, they showed a picture of a captain doing something with a tanker, and they listed the captain's name. Wait a minute, I don't remember him. And it had to do with Bravo Company, and he was dealing with someone from 2nd Platoon. I was in 2nd Platoon. I don't remember. And so that's basically why I'm here. We have a lot of stories. The rock pile was on the Kamlo River, and we used to go to the Ville on our runs, the things that we did, and I just don't remember a lot of the things that we did. One thing I remember, we had Louis Ryle. I know everybody remembers Louis. Was my first tank commander, and we were tasked with getting the elephant grass from around the rock pile. Now, the grunts that were with us were hacking away at it with stuff. And I don't know who did the volunteer, whether it was Lieutenant Lulai or someone else decided, well, send the tanks out, we'll trample it down. But the grunts had to fill sandbags for us to build our bunkers. And so we were out there and just it seemed like a good time, but we had to get the elephant grass out away from the wire and give us a field of fire in case it was needed. And I was a newbie, so I'm sitting up on the top of the turret, and Ryle hit me. He says, "Don't take this lightly. We can still be attacked even though we're out here." And it didn't seem like anything, but you learned quickly about that.
What was your position in the tank?
I was a loader initially, but it wasn't very long before they put me in a gunner. And I spent most of my time early in my tour as a gunner. I think Lieutenant Lulai was gone by the time I got promoted to corporal. And then shortly after that, I became a tank commander. So I was a tank commander toward the end of my first tour as a corporal. And when I came back after my leave to serve my second tour, I was a corporal tank commander. And at that point, they had a definite need for tank commanders. And myself and other corporals also became section leaders. But that was after Lieutenant Lulai and Captain Davis were gone, I believe. So in reading, I'm bouncing around here and I realize it, but I remember some of the things that we did as a unit, and others my mind just floats away. And I'm trying to remember all these things, and it's become hard, and they've said that they would try to help me.
Are there any operations that stand out to you as
We did several. I can't remember the names. I know we were going up and down. What was that, Route 9 that we were on from Camp Carroll to Kamlow out to Kalu. Yes, thank you. And I just don't remember the names of the operations, and sometimes I don't even remember. We would spend 2 or 3 nights out in the bush. Sometimes we didn't see anything, and sometimes there were issues. And I'm just lost.
Was your crew ever ambushed?
I think I remember once on my own where we were ambushed, and it was a nighttime thing, I believe. We'd set up, I remember a Montagnard village or something. We had there was a monument of some type, and the rice paddies obviously were prevalent, and they had a big old tree line going down one side of it, and we took a lot of crap from that tree line. But I was lucky, and we were lucky because we never lost anybody while I was around.
Did you ever encounter any mines when you were over there?
I did not. I was part of an operation where another tank hit, and we had to take care of them while we were there. And that was, I think, we were going out to open up LZ Stud, which later became Vandegrift Combat Base, which again launched from LZ Stud, Vandegrift, to help open the road to Quezon, to free up all the guys that were there. Interesting stories from LZ Stud, because initially there were just a few of us, and then it expanded. And we had some good times and bad times, as you're going to have there, but I was a corporal because I was a tank commander at that point. And funny story, company sent us a tent for us to live in. And we had 2 tanks down there, but the tent that they sent us was in pieces. And we saw a brand new tent wrapped thing. And I said, let's go get that thing. We need a tent to live in. But that's not ours. I don't care. Let's go get it. Let's act like we know what we're doing. So we backed the tank up to where this tent was stored. We threw it on the back end, drove off, and I set it up. And we lived in it for about 2.5 weeks. And then Alpha Company sent someone through, and an officer was part of that group. He saw that we had a brand new tent and wondered why he didn't. So he went back to Camp Carroll and asked that question, and they said, we didn't send him a tent. So obviously someone had to come out, and they took our tent away from us, but they did give us one that was at least usable. They forced us to give that one back. But that was funny, but a not so fun thing happened now that I'm thinking about it. We were all warned when we got there, beware of snakes and scorpions. And one night I felt something crawling on my face. I'm laying there and I do this to brush it off, and I got hit by a scorpion on my right hand, and it didn't take but 30 minutes and my hand just ballooned up. I don't recommend getting hit by a scorpion. And this was not a big one. I didn't see it, but one of the other guys saw it skittering away, and it was only about that big. So they could do a lot to a person that was especially unsuspecting. And I was very lucky that it didn't get me in the face, because it was right around my eye when I just did that, and it got me. But light duty for 2 weeks, no big deal.
Were you ever injured in any other ways?
I was very fortunate. Maybe that's why I have a hard time remembering things, because the worst thing I got was we were at the rock pile filling sandbags, digging areas out, and we got shelled, and you hit the deck, and all I got was a few pieces of shrapnel that landed on my back. Didn't penetrate, but they were hot as hell and burned, left blisters. That's the worst that happened to me as far as injuries go. Maybe that's a reason why I can't remember any specific operations that we went on. I know we had a group from our platoon. Whether it was the whole platoon or not, I can't remember. But we were going to a rear area. We mustered up. We were getting ready to go. And then they canceled the operation at the last minute after bringing us all in. So maybe that's the reason I can't remember, because I was never hurt, and we never lost a crewman the whole time that I was there. The first or second tour, no crewman on my tank was ever lost or hurt. Although I know we were involved in scuffles.
Did you name your tank, or did your tank have a name?
I don't know if it was me, but one of us came up with the idea we were going to be the Playboy platoon. And we paint, the bunny ears and everything. We painted all of our gun barrels with that bunny picture that you used to catch on Playboy magazine. And one day we were all in an area that we lined them up so that one, so that, and had guns all raised at different angles so that you could see them all, and took a picture of it. And I sent the picture to Playboy and said we were the Playboy Bunny Platoon. And so they sent me a box of clippings and cutouts of all pictures and that, which I distributed to everybody in the platoon. And so there were names on them, and there again, I can't remember. Even my own tank, I don't remember what I named it. But it was fun doing that, and I think we did it as a group because it helped form the unity of the group. Besides just being Marines, besides being in the place that we were at, working together, and all the things we went through at that point, that it helped keep our morale going. I like to assume, people come and go, and I remember a lot of the names, and at these reunions I see Bill Davis and Roger Lulai, and we talk about things, and we spread some names around. Yeah, you remember him? Well, this one's no longer with us and that. But we had a character, and he's done many interviews, Wally Young, And he was the first driver I encountered when I hit the rock pile. And Wally is a very gifted Alabaman. A no-nonsense kind of guy. If he liked you, there wouldn't be anything he wouldn't do for you. Don't get on the bad side of Wally. But he liked to give everybody nicknames. And so Wally nicknamed me Breech Block. And for anyone who's been in the tank community, you know what the breech is. You throw your round in, boom, breech pops up, drops down when the shell gets ejected. And of course, you have to maintain these things. And they're not light. So we had chains, if I remember right, that we used to have an eye bolt that you would screw in the chain and you'd pull it out. And I guess I did it quickly. So Wally just nicknamed me Breech Block. And so when I come to the reunions, well, actually the first one I came to, I was a late entrant in Washington. What year was that? 2015 maybe? And Wally is a guy, I don't care how many years it's been since you have seen him, you remember him. And so I checked into the hotel, and Wally comes walking across the open area. He was going to introduce himself. And I said, he came over and I said, Wally, Breech Block here. He got a big smile on his face because I don't look now like I did back then. I was about 180 pounds. And now I took on my mother's brother's physiques after I got out of the Marine Corps. They were all big barrel-chested guys, and so you wouldn't recognize me. So everybody now recognizes Breech Block, which is nice, I guess, to be known for something. But Wally had some stories, and he kind of took me under his wing to help me do things. He was a driver. I wasn't on his tank, but it didn't matter. If you did things, worked well with Wally, it was fine. But
did you do anything fun to pass the time while you were there when there was nothing else to do?
Basically, we had to be sure that our weapons were ready. But when you were at Camp Carroll or, well, Camp Carroll wasn't bad, but the rock pile or I did spend some time up in Quaviette. There it was more right near the DMZ. So you had to be more alert at those places, the rock pile more alert than really back at Camp Carroll. But Dong Ha was the place when, if you got sent back there for anything, we went back there for a queue called a quarterly maintenance on the tank. That's where you could have some fun because they had outdoor theaters and you could sit there and we were limited to 2 beers a day. You got to Dong Ha and it wasn't always that way because we did not have to do guard duty. We were there taking care of our tanks. So we got to see movies. That was the start of the Clint Eastwood spaghetti westerns. So that was always a big hit when we went to Dong Ha. And I can't think of the name of the movie with Sidney Poitier. They call me Mr. Tibbs. It was the forerunner to that. And it was an interesting time because back then there were definite racial issues going on. And that Sidney Poitier movie, everybody was cheering when he made an ass out of, who was it, Rod Steiger, maybe? And I don't remember only a couple of non-whites, other than our Indian friends, Native American. How can I say? What do I have to say? Indian friends. In 2nd Platoon, there was James Laddie and Danny Wadsworth. And of course, being different tribes, they were always at each other. But like everything else, they were friendly when it needed to be, you know. And of course, Laddie was from Oklahoma. And at the rock pile, being an Army base, whatever, well, one day, an Oklahoma flag flies up from the Army command bunker. Laddie's looking at that because, as I said earlier, 2 beers a day, if we could get them. And the Army had not only beer, but there were times they had food flown in, even though we'd walk down to the mess hall. So Laddie went down and made friends with this first sergeant from Oklahoma. We started getting beer every day, and it was cold, which we could never count on coming from wherever we were getting our beer from. That was much better once we started getting our beer, so maybe that helped ease things up. But I don't know if Roger was with us at the time, but one night we started getting peppered with arms fire, machine gun fire. And so we're all looking to get into our tanks, but we couldn't. We were held into the bunkers, and it kept up a good portion of the night. And the next morning, when we got up and started looking around, there's a guy in the machine gun bunker, guard duty. He's picking up rocks, throwing them into the Kamlo River. The guy cracked. Overnight, one of ours turned on us and kept us held down. Needless to say, he had breakfast with the battalion commander at Camp Cara, at the rock pile, and the battalion commander got him out of there, and he had lunch with him, and then we don't know what happened to him after that, but it was a tough time, and you don't expect anything like that from your own, but that was something that happened that, kind of scary. And of course, Roger has a picture. Wally Young, tank driver. What a driver he was. We had a tank up on the hill, and it had to come down for service. However, I'm not sure what the problem was, except they'd lost brakes getting this tank from down. And Wally, I guess, talked with Roger, and Roger told him, get it, hit something with it, get it, something soft, yeah. And Wally got it steered right into the command bunker for us. And Roger's got a picture of me standing out, looking over where you could see the tank had crashed right into the bunker. And I don't even remember, I think they got a retriever to finally get it out of there because there was no way it was going to be moved. But to see the damage that thing done, 54 tons. And that thing just destroyed a load of sandbags and the wall and everything. And that's how, when I made my first reunion, Roger showed it to me, and he put a question mark. He had the name down there, and I saw a question mark. He couldn't remember. He wasn't sure if that was me or not. So I don't know if you call those good times, but those are the fun times you remember, things like that. You know, because you can laugh at them now, but back then, Jesus, what are we going to do? But we used to make our runs out of the rock pile, and I never thought anything of it. Even the times when we were out and we were in the bush, I don't have, those are the things I'm trying to find, because not losing a tanker off of my tank, or any, whether I was the TC or whether I was the gunner, I guess that's maybe why I'm having a hard time with all this. And I can't think of specific instances where we were out doing things that we lost someone. You know, and was I lucky? Don't know. I must have been. Must have been.
What did you end up doing after your second tour?
Actually, I went back to Camp Lejeune. Oh my goodness. I just thought of something. I got malaria when I was over there, and I was diligent with my crew and the other tank. Take your pills daily. Take that big horse gagging pill that you had to take on Sundays. You did those once a week. Diligent about that. And I ended up getting malaria. It's nasty. I lost weight. I dropped to probably about 150 pounds. I was probably 185 to 190 when I got it. You get feverish, you get the chills, you try to cool down the best you can, you're hot as can be. So I was in the hospital in Da Nang, and it took them 2 weeks. I was classified for 2 weeks, FUO, fever unknown origin, because they could get nothing from the blood they were tapping me. I thought I was living with Dracula. They were just taking blood all the time, could find nothing. And after 2 weeks, they finally found that I had the 2 strains that were common over there, Vivax and Falciparum. I had both strains, so that then they could treat it, because until that time, they don't know what medication to give you. So I think I was gone probably 3 or 4 weeks. Now, maybe that's where some of these things that I read about and I can't remember, maybe there's something in there with that. But like I said, I came back 150, 155 pounds. The people in company didn't recognize me. So when I came back to the world, as we used to say, I got stationed at Camp Lejeune, right at the right time. The tank battalion was going on training exercise, going down to Fort Stewart, Georgia, for training. Well, don't you know I get a relapse of malaria, so they had to leave me behind. So I didn't spend only a few days in the hospital there, but it was the time that they were shipping out. And they always leave a handful of people back to maintain the area while they're gone. And we had a gunnery sergeant, don't remember his name, who was kind of in charge. And so when I came back and reported to him, he said, "Oh, the sick, lame, and lazy show up." I was not happy with that comment. And I said, I'm sorry, Gunny. Next time I have a malaria relapse, I'll try to schedule it with you. Never said another word to me. And so I was a sergeant, and so they kind of used me to be an MP, sort of. I spent time at the hospital escorting prisoners from jail to the hospital and back, or things that the prisoners had to do. So I had myself a nice nightstick. They wouldn't give me a gun, but I had a nice nightstick that I could use if I needed to. Luckily, I never had to. But I did that, and when the tanks came back, they needed someone over in the motor pool. I cross-trained as a truck driver when I was over in Vietnam. So since I'd already done that, they let me go over to the motor pool, and the captain over there needed some things done. My background was mechanical engineering. I had some college in it, but as I said, my father died right after my 18th birthday, so I didn't really graduate from college at that point in time. But I had skills, and there were things that he wanted done that he said, it's going to take months to get this through battalion and that stuff. I said, well, what is it you want, Captain? And he told me. I says, well, you get me the equipment. I can fix it up for you right here, do it for you. You can? Yeah. So I laid out on paper the things I needed, but he told me what he wanted, and I put it on paper for him. He said, that's exactly what I'm looking for. Give me the stuff and I'll get it for you. You'll have it in a few days. Boom. So after that, I had an easy life. I hate to say it that way, but it was easy for me because I just did the captain's bidding. Things that he wanted, or he would say something and I'd suggest something, or one of the others would suggest something, and I took care of it for him. And that's the way I spent the last part of my time, and they offered an early out. They wanted to get rid of us Vietnam veterans. So I took that and got out of the Marine Corps 3 months earlier than my enlistment showed. But we were talking about it earlier today. Sometimes the reason we extended in Vietnam is because we didn't want to come back. And what are you going to do at Camp Lejeune or Camp Pendleton or wherever they happen to send you? What are you going to do there after you've been through all of this? I don't know. Don't know. So that was part of the reason for the extension, I guess. Oh, geez, another one comes up. I wish I could remember what I did in Vietnam, the things I missed, but I extended. You get 30 days leave. I come back, I'm in Okinawa, and I'm scheduled for a flight. I go to the flight, they bump me. Boom. This went on for almost 2 weeks. Kept getting bumped. Then one day, every day the MPs had come around and they're checking people. One day they come into our area, said, stand by your racks and drop your ID. So I dropped my ID down there. The MP says, you're under arrest, come with me. What'd I do? You're AWOL. No, I'm not, I'm here. So I ended up going to the brig with them. They said, your company clerk's got you listed AWOL. Huh? So I spent 2 days in the brig. Because of that, they were trying to get the information about it. I told them, look, you guys keep bumping me. I'm here, I'm trying to get back. But they would bump guys that were going back for their second tour and sending the newbies over. And I got lucky that I saw the company gunny, and I can't remember his name, looking out the window of the brig, and I see him, "Gunny, come here." So he walks over. "Corporal Reish, what are you doing in the brig?" Our company clerk's name was Rabbit. He's the one that came along after Chet Ruby. Rabbit's got me listed AWOL. So I told him the story about being bumped all the time. He says, "I'll take care of this for you." So just a little while later, I was out of the brig. But you can believe I was on the next flight back to after being bumped for that many times. So I don't know. I'm here talking. Very good questions. You brought to mind some things that I completely forgot about. My time there with Roger and Bill and whoever else was along there, I don't remember a platoon commander that I had after Roger. I can't think of their names. And I know I had one because we were up at Quaviette, and it wasn't him. Another story. I didn't realize they called them butter bars, but we had a brand new second lieutenant that came to take over, and he was a little guy, and he was just like a gnat flitting around, and he thought he knew all about tanks, and we were going down the Gulf, and he got too far into the Gulf. We used to run along and try to spray the water up on, and he buried the tank. Luckily, the crew got out, so did he, but they had to swing the turret around, climb out the barrel of the cannon, and drop down. Before he got on the gun barrel, he took his weapon, his .45, and threw it onto the beach. One of the guys picked it up and hid it. And when the battalion commander came up, because you bury a tank, they want to know what's going on out there. And so whatever the lieutenant was telling him, we don't know, but the sergeant major came with the colonel, and the guy pulled out the lieutenant's gun. He took it over to the sergeant major and said, "I don't know who this belongs to. I found it out on the beach after they buried the tank." Needless to say, the lieutenant didn't stay with us very much longer, but it was funny because they had not a PX, but a place where they brought all the supplies for those of us that were up guarding along the DMZ. They put him in charge of that, and we stole him blind. He was too stupid to realize what was going on. And so it's, not a smart thing to do or say, but come on. And so that was an interesting time. And so after he left, we got another platoon commander, and I don't remember his name. I don't remember the company commanders other than Captain Davis. I know, another thing. I extended, and of course you have to get out of your area, go to the rear to catch a flight back home. And the first sergeant and the company commander, I remember the first sergeant, and I'm not going to say his name because I don't know how the people around here know him, and he's no longer with us. But they said, we don't have a Jeep to get you down there. Walk, it's not that far. Okay. So I took my stuff and I'm walking down the highway, and the battalion commander and the battalion sergeant major are coming up in a Jeep. They pulled over, I give them the salute. They pulled over. What are you doing out here, Marine? Well, I'm extended. I'm headed home, and they didn't have a Jeep for me at company to get me down there, so they said, walk. It's only a couple of miles. Get in the Jeep. I got in the Jeep, back up to company. A little while later, I was on a Jeep headed south so I could get my flight to come home. And there were repercussions, to say the least. Why do I remember these things now? I'm thankful that Bill and Roger are supporting me in this, and I wish I could do more, show more, and remember more of my time with them. But again, here I am.
Well, honestly, you've shared a lot, and we're almost at an hour.
Oh, really?
Yes, you've actually shared a lot of unique stories that I haven't heard before.
Oh.
Can you tell me, what did you do when you got out of the Marines?
I had a hard time. Coming back to the world was tough. It was, the people were against the war, so since I participated, they were against me. As I said, I got an early discharge, 3 months early, and I became a very heavy drinker. It's a good thing I never drank alone, because there were many times I was, in a bar, and there was always someone, because, well, I don't have any hair as it is, but back then I had a little bit, and we were short because we'd just come out of the Marine Corps. And the remarks, you walk by and the accidental push and that, and for the first year or better, I broke a lot of beer bottles on bars going at people. Which is why I'm glad I went with friends, because they stopped me. And I was in places where they had bouncers, and the bouncer would grab the other person and me. They'd say, we don't want to see you again. But to me, they said, we understand. You're out tonight, but you can come back anytime you want. So there were some people that understood, and alcohol was a big part of my life up until a couple of years ago. Now I do it occasionally. So once I got out, I never held a job more than 2 years, from 1970 until early to mid 80s. I did get an associate degree. I'm from Rochester, New York. So in the mid 80s, after moving around, I lived in Ohio, lived in North Carolina. And after getting out, or going through that, I ended up moving back to Rochester. Ended up working for Xerox, and spent 25 years, because at that point in time you say, Jesus, what have I done with my life? And I was fortunate at that time. They were a good company to work for. I advanced from being a technician to writing software. And so I retired from Xerox with 28 years after a lot of lost years before getting there. So other than, working 2 years at a time doing this and that, it just nothing ever interested me until one day I said I better get my head out of my ass and figure out what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. So 28 years at Xerox, retired, and I got lucky. A lot luckier than a lot of my brothers. Not only from the physical standpoint, but the mental standpoint as well. I'm wacky, but not as bad as some, and not carrying what some are. But I'd like to know, what am I carrying? Is there something I've got buried that I don't know about? So, I don't know.
That was perfect. Thank you for sharing your stories. Thank you for your service, and thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you for putting up with me.